first met Karen when I was her freshman basketball coach. I know it's hard to believe when you look at me, but that's a true story. And at that time, I knew she had great spirit and was going to do wonderful things in life. A little did I know her path was going to be education, and I would end up being a colleague of hers. And this is where I saw that she had developed into an amazing, compassionate teacher. She's truly a blessing to those around her. 15 years ago, as you've already heard, she had a vision that most people didn't think would happen. But due to her dedication and passion, Dr. Gray and the community and several local businesses invested, and we now have what's considered a nationally recognized program to pack of dogs due to Karen's dedication to this over the last 15 years. So I want to thank you, Karen, for bringing me on board and inviting me into your pack. And I also want to thank you for the lessons that you've taught me along the way of working with you. And at this time, I want to talk a little bit about the community outreach that we've done. I know we have representatives here from Oxford and MSU, but I do have some flyers that I have some people that are going to pass out that I want to kind of mention. And as they're doing that, it took, aside from what we're seeing here, we've done a lot of community outreach, and I've been blessed to be part of that outreach team. It's taken a lot of us to have that vision and to do it. Handlers, you've invested a lot of time in doing so and believing in what the mission was. A lot of volunteers that I've personally recruited are here, and I thank you for that, for going along that journey and trusting in what we have to say and what you see the impact that the dogs have made. Not to mention, we've gone to Clinton High School, Perry Elementary, Howell High School, and numerous other things. And not that they were neglected to be on this, but I just kind of picked some that were pretty passionate to me in this journey. As you can see at the very top, beginning in 2019, my mother was in a nursing home, so I had the luxury of taking Scout to visit people that were in the nursing home, and there were two very young individuals that were at that nursing home that became very dear and fond of the dog. And the top picture, as you see, U of M Hospital, the young man was really struggling and had to be hospitalized for some mental issues. We took some time to go visit him to brighten his day. And it's something so simple that we can do by taking a dog and making somebody's day a lot better. 2019, Richard Elementary School, Grosse Pointe. They lost 2 children in a house fire. We had reached out to them and said, hey, there's something that we can do to help provide some relief for your students and staff. Would you like us to come? And they invited us graciously, and I was able to go out there and be part of that. September 2020, a surprise home visit. We had a student that was really struggling during lockdown, and we did a surprise visit. I should say I was part of each and every one of these community outreach ventures. Surprise visit to him, which you would have thought he won $1 million. He was so happy just to see the dog. You don't ever have an identification when you're traveling with a dog. It's all about the dog. So it was wonderful, the hope that he brought to this young man. And this one is very dear. January 2022, as Maria had mentioned, she started a GoFundMe page for Oxford so they could start their pack of dogs. The Santo family, if any of you remember, Brendan Santo was a Grand Valley State University student that went missing on Michigan State's campus. And that family, in their time of grieving, donated $10,000 to Oxford so they could start and get a dog, and it was named Santo in honor of their son. And not only did they have the passion to do that, they realized the impact that Karen's program, this Pack of Dogs program, has had on many people. They had asked if we could attend Brendan's funeral and be present for that family. And I was able to take one of our dogs, and they wanted us just to stand there and greet people as they arrived, just to kind of break the ice. And that was amazing. And then the Scout had hung out with the pallbearers just to help them in that process before the funeral began. Last on the list, September 2022, supporting MSP officers, family, and friends. There was a shooting. An undercover cop was doing in Detroit. He was shot, as you can read there, in September of 2022. Severe wounds, wasn't sure if he was going to make it. And my niece just happens to head the MNET program for MSP. She's well aware of the impact and the amazing things that these dogs have done because I've bragged about it, and I'm very proud to be part of this journey. She had asked if I would be able to bring one of our dogs to help support fellow MSP officers as well as family and friends. And to be honest, I was quite nervous about that. That was one of the first times I was doing an adult-only thing. But to see the power of that dog by just walking in speaks volumes. I mean, we can see and tell you all day long, but we were very honored to be asked to go and support the officers who support us every day in the field. So special thanks to all the volunteers and handlers that have come along in this journey. And also, what a great lesson that we have to offer to the kids here, to say that somebody else is more in need of the dog than we are today, right? To be able to take that out and to share this wonderful program with others. Karen, I just want to thank you for bringing me along, and I totally admire everything that you do and who you are, first and foremost, as a compassionate teacher, devoted community member that's done endless things to this in this community, as well as an amazing mom to all those, that boy pack over there. So thank you, and thank you very much for including me.
Caitlin Perry Dial to the podium.
Hi, thank you. I actually have two messages that are not from me to share tonight. First is from the Dean of MSU Libraries, Terry Miller. The MSU Libraries and the MSU community wants to thank Karen and the Brighton Pack of Dogs for their role in healing our campus after the terrible shooting on February 13th. Many students were afraid to come back to campus after the shooting, or they felt that they would no longer be the same, or it would no longer be the same welcoming university community that they remembered. The Brighton Pack of Dogs came to us in force, as literally across the bridge from the stadium. They came in force and they filled the library with so many loving fur balls of joy that the students came and stayed. They reveled not just in the love of dogs, but in the community they had together. They talked, they laughed, and they cried together while playing with the dogs. And they made huge progress in healing on that day. This is Terry speaking. I overheard a few MSU students talking shortly after they left the dogs, and one student said, "MSU is not the same now. It feels different, but I think we're all going to be okay." The love of the Brighton Pack of Dogs and the MSU community, students and alumni that came together that day made that statement possible. For that, we have to thank Karen for her inspiration to bring that pack to us, and those lovely dogs for giving their unconditional all to the students who needed the most that day. And then the second message is from Dr. Stephanie Morley. She could not be here tonight, but has requested that I read this for her and to share in the singing of praises for Karen's story. Stephanie is a veterinarian, a sponsor for Bronx, a Brighton parent, and Karen's right-hand person for helping other schools in Michigan and across the country replicate what Karen and the BAS community has done here. Karen, the Pack of Dogs has done so much for our community and the individuals within it. It is truly hard to put into words. These dogs have taught our kids how to be kind and loving and a source of light in people's lives. They embody that and illustrate that to kids every day. For the kids who are bullied, they are a source of non-judgmental kindness in a judgmental world. Through the Pack of Dogs, you have created a living daily example of how to choose love over hate and acceptance over bullying. I know you've faced significant challenges to build this program and keep it going, and I just want you to know, this is Stephanie, and me too. I just want you to know that you too are an example of love, persistence, strength in the face of adversity, and that is why we celebrate you today. for me. And for myself, as your neighbor, your friend, and your admirer. The Brighton Pack of Dogs was one of the largest reasons we chose to live in this community. We were living in West Michigan, and I read an article about the Brighton Pack of Dogs, and I said, that's where we should go. To me, a school district that invested so much time and love into the social and emotional learning of children through the love of dogs sold me. So much so that my family decided to sponsor Susie, the latest pup at Horning, where my boys get to see and love on her daily. And I just did. I got to give her a little pet. You are a force for greatness and of the kindest heart. Thank you, Karen, for everything.
At this time, I would like to invite Caitlin Malberg and Alexis Hobson from Oxford Community Schools to the podium.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Malberg. I am a school counselor at Oxford Middle School. This is Oscar. So Oscar is a member of Oxford Community Schools therapy facility dog program called the Oxford Wildcat Pack. Thank you for having us tonight and giving us the opportunity to honor someone very special to our school district. I told myself I wasn't getting emotional. Okay. As many of you know, our school district endured the unimaginable on November 30th, 2021. We struggled to think of how we could welcome our students and staff back into the buildings with ensuring comfort, safety, and support. Daisha Beasley, who at the time was principal at Oxford Middle School, was recommended by her brother-in-law to call Karen's story. Karen and her pack of dogs were able to make an impact on his school district after facing their own tragedy. Days after November 30th, we were in contact with Karen. Karen and her entire pack volunteered their time to come to Oxford and welcome us back into Oxford Middle School for the first time. I will never forget this day. I call it the Brighton magic. When their pack entered the building, we instantly felt comfort and a smile came across our faces. The handlers were incredible and willing to help support in any way they could. Watching their pack work is truly magic. Brighton's pack of dogs' paw prints are forever imprinted on Oxford's heart. For the next 2 months, Brighton Pack of Dogs volunteered their time helping support Oxford Middle School and welcoming Oxford High School students and staff back into the building. So being the amazing people they are, Karen and her pack wanted to help and give back even more. Like many of you talked about today, they started a GoFundMe page to help our district create our own therapy facility dog program. Our goal was to start with 5 dogs. I am humbled and honored to say that their GoFundMe page and networking raised over $100,000 in donations. At the start of next school year, we will have 12 dogs a part of our Oxford Wildcat Pack. We have 8 of our dogs are funded through the GoFundMe page and are sponsored by Brighton's Pack of Dogs. Without Karen, Maria, and their pack support, this could not be possible. Our OWP dogs have truly been one of the biggest blessings to our students, staff, and community. Karen, I cannot express how truly grateful Oxford is for your caring heart and continuous support during our recovery. You are the most selfless person I have ever met and have positively impacted so many lives. I admire your desire to help others at all costs and your passion to serve. Thank you for helping our dream of having our own pack come to life. I hope one day our pack can bring comfort to others like the Brighton Pack of Dogs have for Oxford.
Hi, my name is Alexis Hobson, and I've been lucky enough to know Miss Karen's story, Chevy, and the other Brighton dogs for a little over a year and a half now. I'm an Oxford High School student, and I'm going into my junior year. As a freshman, I was in the building during the November 30th shooting in 2021. The last time I had the opportunity to speak about the Brighton dogs, I was speaking based on my own experience, as well as on behalf of my fellow students who I know have, okay, here we go. Hold on. Okay, last time I had the opportunity to speak about the Brighton dogs, I was speaking based on my own experience, as well as on behalf of my fellow students, who I know have also appreciated everything the Brighton Pack of Dogs has done to encourage a welcoming environment in our school building. However, this time I'd like to share a little bit more of my personal experience. Soon after the shooting in November, I promised that I would never go back to Oxford High School. In fact, I thought I would never go to school again. By the time January had rolled around and I had a little time to heal, Oxford High School students were being welcomed into the Oxford Middle School building. After the first week of school at OMS, I decided to give going back to Oxford a second chance. Thank you. Okay. On January 8th, 2022, I walked into a school building for the first time after being afraid for my life to last. As you might suspect, I was hesitant. However, upon entering the building and climbing up the first set of stairs, can't see. Climbing up the first set of stairs, I was greeted by my first therapy dog, Hope. I knelt down and rubbed her belly, and in those few short seconds, the racing worries stopped, and I walked through the rest of the hallway to my first class, smiling and waiting to find another therapy dog. Later that day, in my last class before going home, I was sitting with my partner playing Yahtzee when another furry friend came walking through the door. With his tongue out and what looked to me like a smile, he came walking towards my desk and laid down right at my feet. This was the first time I met Chevy. Chevy was the first therapy dog that I got to spend quality time with. After getting down on his level, Chevy gave me this Brighton Pack of Dogs bracelet. I spent the rest of class sitting with Chevy on the floor. During this time, other students came all around Chevy. This led me to have conversations with students I'd never talked to before. After that day was over and my mom picked me up, the first thing I did was tell her about the dog named Chevy that visited my math class. My first day at Oxford Middle School was a success. I made it through all 3 classes pretty smoothly, with fear pretty well shoved into the back of my mind. I never expected the following day to be so much of a challenge. We pulled up to the same entrance, and instead of climbing out and saying goodbye, I broke down in tears and said that I couldn't go in. We pulled around to the side of the building where I shared my fear of another attack. Eventually, after an administrator came around to our car, I made this decision to walk into the building with a mental health professional. We chatted in the office, and I settled down. And as we were walking to class, I asked to visit the 3 Brighton dogs that seemed to be just waiting for me as I passed by. And I did say hello to all 3 of those dogs. During my integration back into school, I had good days and I had very challenging days. But through them both, I always looked out for the therapy dogs. After a tragedy like the Oxford High School shooting, words can be really hard to find. Sometimes there aren't any words to describe your feelings. None of that matters when you reach down to pet a therapy dog. No words are required. The comfort I've received from dogs like Chevy is unlike anything a human can give. Without a single word, just the presence of the dog provides an outlet and sometimes some even needed encouragement. So I'm grateful for all the people who volunteer their time to support me and this Oxford community. I hope that you understand the impact that your time with us has had on students like me who were afraid to go back to school. And I'm grateful for Ms. Story, who stayed in contact with me, and Chevy, because he gave me what I needed to continue to try every morning to come to school until it wasn't so scary anymore. Thank you so much for letting me share.
At this time, I would like to invite Pam Sika to the podium.
Thank you. As soon as I walked in and I saw the people from Oxford here, I thought, please don't let me go after Oxford, because I wasn't sure if I would be able to compose myself enough to speak after them. So to the ladies from Oxford, thank you for sharing your story, your bravery in coming up here and sharing in what was a day that everyone in this room, especially those of us who work in schools, can't forget. So thank you. I'm the principal of Abbott Elementary in Ann Arbor, and when my son was at Maltby, he came home one day and said, "Caesar slept at my feet today." That was just about the only thing he's ever told me about school, so I knew that it meant a great deal to him. He just graduated last Friday, and that still remains just about the only thing he's ever shared with me about school. So a couple years later, I saw Karen at a youth football game, and where our sons were playing, and she had one of the dogs with her. And thinking about my school, I walked up to Karen and started talking to her, and she shared a lot of information at that time about the dog and shared her contact information with me. So I took this information back to my boss, who was very excited about the idea, and we visited Maltby. She took it to our school attorney, who instantly said no, without any explanation, and my boss said, "No worries." We kept working on him with Karen's help, and Karen guided us through the process and helped us get him on board. She didn't just do that. She found us a dog who looks like Martha, and she found us a trainer. She found us a vet, and she guided me through the whole process of how to share this with my families, how to share this with staff. And Karen, you know how impacted my school is. When people think of Ann Arbor, they don't think that Ann Arbor is necessarily as impacted as it is, but my school attendance area houses the most impacted families in Washtenaw County in an apartment complex. Families who have to meet multiple risk factors to live there, such as homelessness, mental illness, and incarceration. And we have almost 50% of our families on free and reduced lunch in our school. And we've had kids we've taken Star to a student's father's funeral, a student whose father was killed by another student's parent. We've taken Star to kids' homes who are afraid to come to school. And Star has made just a world of difference to our staff, to our students, and to our community. And Karen, this is because of you. It's not because of what I did, it's because of what you have done. We have 4 dogs in Ann Arbor now, and Karen has helped us get those other dogs as well. I told another principal who then received a dog that in my 15 years as a principal, getting Star was the best thing that I've done in all of my years in education. And it's really not what I did, Karen, it's what you did. This wouldn't have happened without you. As the ladies from Oxford said, you are the most selfless person I know. I'm not sure how you do what you do, because it seems very overwhelming when I think about it, but you have impacted thousands upon thousands of students. And I look at ours and think of how much I appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you, Karen. Our whole staff thanks you. Our whole community thanks you. And I think Shelby Waters was going to come up with me. This is okay.
I'm not sure if everyone heard, but my name is Shelby Walters.
I go to Mulvey Intermediate School as a 6th grader. You might be thinking, what type of dogs could help a 6th grader impact their life? Chevy, first of all, helped me a lot. And he's changed my life completely. In the past 2 years, I've been struggling with major anxiety, causing me to skip school. Last year, I skipped a week. Because of that week, hold on. I got to spend a lot of time with the dogs, especially Chevy. I've grown a favoritism towards Chevy because how much he's helped me with my anxiety and how much he's changed me as a person. Right now, in 5th grade, I'd be struggling right now. I'm still struggling. I'd be struggling right now to come up here and perform my speech, and I wouldn't be talking to anyone at this point. But Chevy and Miss Story helped me come out of my shell just a teensy bit. And I was able to make more friends, feel more comfortable with my teachers, and just be a better person and all. I and all Mulvey appreciate you so much for changing all of our lives and changing the way we act. Again, thank you.
I would like to invite Nicole Korpusik.
Hello. So about 2 months before Oxford had their tragedy, my school, Clinton High School, had ours. My principal at the time was Mr. Beasley, who is related to your Miss Beasley. You see where we're going with that? So we contacted, so what had happened was we had our boys, and they were in a car accident. And it was 4 seniors, and 2 didn't come back to us, and 2 were in the hospital, and we weren't sure if they were going to make it or not. And I can tell you, as a teacher for many years, when you see kids in the hallway every day, and as a special ed teacher, and you have supports for your kids, and you watch them walk out the doors, and you're not sure what's going to actually happen, and they don't come back the next day, those are tough days. Those are hard conversations to have at staff meetings at 7 a.m. We were connected with Karen and with your community within 24 hours of our tragedy. We immediately were offered support to our students and our staff. Our students were hurting. Our staff was broken. She checked in. She arranged for 2 dogs to visit with just the staff first because of all things, Clinton is known for the Fall Festival. We always have that day off. So that Friday, instead of enjoying the elephant ears, the funnel cakes, and all of the delightfulness that should be enjoyed, we sat with the dogs, and we chose the dogs over fried foods and goodies. Because although that would have helped us, in the end, we really just needed to be with each other and with them. Then we had 3 more dogs come with the students and include a 10-week-old puppy, which I will say many students tried to keep, and we had to remind them that they had to go back. We had them the first day after regular school after our boys' funerals. We watched 2 of our students. She also offered to bring the dogs for the vigils, the funerals, whatever else we needed. Karen is completely selfless. You've heard it time and time again today. She continually checked in. She offered support to our community. She didn't know us. I just met her when I walked in the door, people. She came up and hugged me, jumped through a crowd and said, "You must be from Clinton. My name's Karen." I was like, "Girl, you're the star of the show." "Hey, lovely to meet you." Your impact to our community is astounding. We are an hour away. There's 350 kids that adore our dog buddy because of you. You have eased the grief in our community. The immediate impact of the dog is felt throughout. We had him in the library with the kids to just sit and be. Those seniors needed happiness. They needed hope. You gave it to them. Thank you so much for that. Instead of catching kids crying in the hallway, we were getting smiles and we were getting kids to talk about things that they didn't have words to say. I didn't have words to say. I would walk out of my classroom and go down and just sit with a dog because we didn't know what to do. You don't know what to do in these things. Immense anxiety, sadness. The first time many of our students felt like they could breathe was because the pack of dogs showed up. And I think the first gentleman said it, the cavalry came in, and he was right. We received numerous emails, positive comments from parents, students, texting the teens actually making it through a day, actually being able to go class to class because they weren't scared that that student's name would get mentioned. They weren't scared when a substitute was going to say it on accident. They weren't scared anymore. So thank you. CHS is immensely grateful to Karen, your team, Chevy, Duncan, Scout, and the precious puppy, because we didn't know what his name was, that provided these moments of relief to help us with our pain and path for healing. We wish you all the best, Karen. We hope that we will be good stewards of your vision, carry on your legacy through our dog buddy, who you helped us get, and our school therapy dog program. You are an absolute rock star. We are so grateful to know you. Thank you.
I would like to invite Ms. Mona Shan from Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin's office.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm here on behalf of 7th District Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. She's very sorry she couldn't be here herself tonight. This is a voting week in Washington, so she is back on the House floor. But she's had the opportunity to see the impact of the pack of dogs in many different circumstances. Of course, here in Brighton, but also Oxford was part of the former 8th Congressional District. Michigan State University is part of the 7th Congressional District, both of which she represented. So she's had the chance to see them in action across her district and to see just how powerful they are. So she wanted to do something to make sure that the story of the pack of dogs and what Karen has done is told and is remembered, not just here as part of Brighton area schools history and not just part of Michigan's history, but as part of our nation's history. So the tool that she has to do that is called a congressional record statement. And the congressional record is just what it sounds like. It's the record of everything that happens in Congress, every speech, every debate, as well as tributes that can be entered in written form. So it becomes part of our nation's archives. It's archived by the Library of Congress. So for years, decades, generations to come, people will be able to search pack of dogs in the Library of Congress, and they will find this tribute. I'm not going to read the whole thing because, as you can see, lots of words. But I will read a little bit from the beginning and a little bit from the end. And I have a copy for Karen and also a copy for the district. It says, Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to a group of dedicated, devoted, and darling therapists who just happen to have 4 legs. The Brighton Area Schools Social and Emotional Learning Dogs, or BAS Pack of Dogs as they are better known, are celebrating 15 years of service to the district and to the community. And in that time, this program has become a source of pride for the district and a model for the state and the nation. But before there was a pack, there was a dog, a teacher, and an idea. In 2008, middle school special education teacher Karen Story witnessed the positive response kids had to a fellow teacher's dog. That prompted her to research the physical, social, and emotional benefits of therapy dogs on students. I'm going to skip a little bit to the end now. In celebration of 15 years of canine collaboration, I salute the BAS Pack of Dogs and its humans for the profound difference they have made in the lives of so many. It may be true that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but a pack of dogs can clearly teach all of us new ways of thinking. As man's best friend, it is only fitting that the contributions of the BAS Pack of Dogs find their forever home here in the official record of the People's House of the United States of America. Thank you, Karen.
Ms. Shan. Okay, at this time, I would like to invite State Representative Ann Bolin.
Thank you very much. I'm Ann Bolin. I stand here on behalf of Senator Tice and myself to present this tribute. This is a state tribute. And, we all know here what a very, very special community Brighton is. And certainly it's because of stories and people like Karen that make it that way. But working at the Capitol, and I know Congressman Slotkin and I have both talked about this, to understand what the reach is of our community. Communities around the country, around our state are there. This is a very, very special place that we have. And it's thanks to people like Karen. And Karen, I'm going to ask you to come up here because you've been quietly sitting there, very humble as you are. And so many words have been said tonight, and sometimes there really are no words. But I find it most interesting that your name is Karen with Karen it, and you just happen to marry somebody by the name of Story, I assume, and you have this great story. And your spirit of calm, compassion, courage, and confidence not only help here, but they will surely live on as a legacy. And on behalf of the state of Michigan, I want to present this tribute in your thanks for all your contributions to our community and wish you the very, very best of luck. This is signed by the governor, lieutenant governor, Senator Tice, and myself. So congratulations. And thank you so much.
Okay, at this time, I would invite Mr. John Conley to the podium.
You have to stay here, Karen, come on. Good evening. On behalf of our chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Livingston County, Dave Domas, I'm presenting this to Mrs. Story, and I'll read it short. And these words, in honor of her efforts and dedication in leading the growth and development of the Pack of Dogs program in Brighton area schools, and the positive impact she has had as a second-generation teacher of this district. Dave Domas, Chairman, Board of Commissioners. Now, Dave is, I believe, 86 years old. Dave has been around a long time. And Commissioner Domas represents what we all do here. And very important for him to see this get to Karen tonight. So, thank you. As a board member, it's been a privilege to be supportive of what Karen's done since the first day. And I can tell you that my heart and my dog, Jack, where is he? Karen, yeah, she got my checkbook too. Yes, we do. We all do. And you know what? It's my privilege that we could help. But I ran into this, and it was an interesting meeting I was having with a federal agent, but it's okay. This was on the wall. And it was from her mother, and her mother was an American Legion auxiliary chief. But this is from B.J. Gallagher. One tree can start a forest. One smile can bring a friendship. One hand can lift a soul. One word can frame the goal. One candle can wipe out darkness. One laugh can conquer gloom. One touch can show you care. One life can make the difference. Be that one day. This is Karen's story. She's an ambassador of goodwill, period. Nothing better. And for me, I'm a student of Bob Scranton, Joe Erzik, Lyle Powers, Jerry Lester, Sue Roseborough, Mrs. Sachs, Carol Cook. I can tell you that, and everybody I know would be so proud of this day for Karen. So thank you.
Thank you to all of you for those truly heartfelt tributes and for sharing those incredible stories. They are truly a testament to the profound, immeasurable impact that Karen has had on so many lives. during very difficult times when they needed it most. The dog program will always represent a true legacy of Karen as a visionary and a leader, not only in the district, but as you can see, as far wide as her impact has already been felt. And so thank you for doing that. Now we have a tribute that we would like to give to you. So Mr. Trombley, if you'd like to join me at the podium. So Karen, on behalf of the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education, we want to thank you for all that you have done in establishing and growing this program, and the amazing impact you've had on the lives and touched so many people, as evidenced by the turnout here this evening. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for your dedication and commitment and all you've done to help all of those individuals. So with that, we have a tribute. I would like to read it. It's here so everyone can see it. It says, "Over and above, presented to Karen Story, in recognition of your vision, hard work, dedication, and passion, as the founder of the Pack of Dogs, you set the tone for years to come. Your big heart has brought joy and healing to not only our community, but surrounding communities as well during difficult times. You really have gone over and above in your dedication to improving the lives of those who need it most. On behalf of the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education."
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone that has come tonight. I see some officers way back there. But I just want to say a few words. In the last 15 years, you've heard me quote relationships in regards to this program. And, you know, it's all about building relationships. But I really want to talk about the word unify. And, you know, this program has unified school boards, past and present. It's unified staff with students, students to students. It has unified the community within Brighton area schools. It has unified other districts, professions, and other entities. The unification between the handler and the dog, and that we have our 15 handlers here, I can't tell you enough. They are the ones on the other side of the leash and unifying people. And we have this community here. We aren't just all Brighton here. This is all of Michigan and beyond. And I can't tell you enough, when you get to be on the other side of a leash during a tragedy, that's when you get to see the work of these dogs. So I applaud all of my handlers here. This really is about a team. This is not about me. And my one takeaway for me is these dogs continue to unify everyone they come in contact with you. And I just want to tell you, thank you to all of you for coming tonight. And I thank you to our Board of Education. I thank you for supporting me and believing in me and knowing who I am as a real person. So I thank you. Lastly is to my family. My family has given their time away for me as a mom. We have 4 sons, and I have a beautiful, wonderful, handsome husband. And to my in-laws, and to my mom, my dad is no longer with us, but I gave my all to Brighton area schools. And I just want to tell my family, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this. And it has impacted the people and the goals and the vision way beyond what I ever thought it would be. But they're the ones who have suffered of me not being there at every single event. But I thank them. And I thank you guys again.
ceremony for this evening, I would like to thank all of you for attending. And there is cake and refreshments in the cafeteria down around the corner to the right. We, as the board, we have our regular meeting that we have to continue after the conclusion of this. So have a piece of cake on us. And thank you again for coming.
I mean, she's gonna do whatever we ask. I mean, she's the new person. If you want her to stay,
Like leave and then.
well, I mean, she's our third, so she's a girl, so we'll just wait. We'll just wait.
All right. I think that's fine. I don't want to give the impression that she should, yeah, she gets introduced, that she's late.
I think Bill went downstairs.
Maybe they can
Yes.
down.
Yeah, you could announce again. Yeah, just announce again. We have to get the meeting.
Excuse me, folks. Excuse me, folks. Hello.
What's that clapping?
Excuse me, folks. If you could please continue with this reception downstairs, we have to start our meeting. Thank you.
All right, so I think Bill's downstairs. Oh, is he? Okay. You see him? Yeah.
Okay. Start with,
You do too? Yeah, right?
Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, let me apologize for the delay in the start of our regular meeting. We're just finishing up a couple ceremonies that were earlier this evening that ran longer than we anticipated. So in any event, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Acklemeyer, roll call, please.
Mr. Storm?
Present.
Dr. Krebs? Here. Ms. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mrs. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Trombley, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to the Shining Stars. Are we still doing that this evening, Mr. Thompson?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect.
Yeah, just a little bit different format tonight. Just needed to get our students home. They've got exams the next 2 days, so we cut them loose. So I'll just kind of give you the highlights and give you a quick board report, and we'll make sure that we take care of the kids down the road here. But our boys track and field team, coached by Amanda Bell, they were MHSA regional champions this year, with 10 student athletes qualifying for the state finals over in Grand Rapids at Rockford High School. Our girls track and field team likewise had 10 student athletes qualify for the state meet over at Rockford as well, and they are coached by Miss Samantha Etter. Our boys golf team, 3 of whom that we just graduated earlier this evening, they had an outstanding campaign on the links as well. They were KLA champions and finished 3rd in Division I this past weekend over at Grand Valley State University at the Meadows course. Our boys lacrosse team, coached by Mr. Jim Carl, they were also MHSA regional champions. And before I end with the highlight, just kind of give a quick update on some of our other programs. Our baseball program they went 27-9-1 in the year, so really good campaign by them. Slightly winning percentage, a little bit better than the Tigers at this point. Maybe the Tigers will get it going, but proud of our Bulldogs baseball team. Our girls soccer team were MHSA district champions as well this past spring. Girls softball finished 8th in the KLA, and our girls tennis program finished 3rd in the KLA this year. And all of our spring student athletes, 81.5% of them ended the year with a 3.0 GPA or better. So good young people out there working hard in the classroom and also competitively out there on the fields of play. So we're really proud of them. And likewise, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the members of our community and our faculty and our staff, and our Board of Education and our central office, and just everybody, all concerned, for contributing to our programs and making them something worthwhile for the development of young people. So that's what I have for you tonight, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And I'd just like to say congratulations to all of our amazing student athletes for a tremendously successful spring. I also noted that 81.5% of all of the athletes received a BHS Scholar Athlete of 3.0 or greater, grade point average. And so it's great to see that they're being successful not only on the field, but in the classroom as well.
And I forgot to circle back to the thing I was saving for last. So I'm glad you spoke for a quick second. Our girls lacrosse team, state champions this past Saturday, over again on the west side at Rockford High School, and that makes it back to back, which we've had some back-to-back champions over the years of Brighton High School history, but I believe off the top of my head that this is the first girls program to win back-to-back state championships. So they're really setting the bar, and we're excited, and we'll see if the number 3 is in their future next year. So that's all Mr. Conley?
So I kind of ask you this every now and then. What's our total number of students that are involved in some type of sport within the school?
Sure. So right now, currently, a high school population's a little bit over, smidge over 2,000 students. We go back and forth in any given year that between about 48 and 49% of our student body's population plays at least one sport at Brighton High School, which is quite honestly higher than the norm.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Okay, that moves us to the next item on our agenda, the superintendent report. Dr. Outlaw.
All right. We're going to continue with our honors. We have some retirees that are going to be honored this evening. And the principals are going to come forward when I announce your name, and we're going to celebrate the great careers of a number of our employees. So I'd like to have, I believe that Ms. Darkowski and, okay, we're going to have some folks from Hawkins that are going to come forward. Ms. Wood is going to come forward and is going to speak on behalf of our retirees from Hawkins Elementary School.
Thank you. Our principal, Mr. McAuliffe, had to leave, so we wanted to speak on his behalf. I'm Christina Wood. I teach 4th grade at Hawkins.
I'm Brandy Ward, and I've taught with Heidi for many years at Hawkins.
Chris Darkowski, I currently teach with Heidi at Hawkins.
Chris Sins, I'm her neighbor classroom at Hawkins.
So we are here tonight because we wanted to celebrate Heidi Newman's 40-year teaching career. So throughout her tenure in Brighton, she has brought humor, love, and a passion for believing in every student who was lucky enough to be in her class. Heidi has always accepted and met every child where they are at, teaching them and guiding them along the way. In Heidi's own words, she has loved spending her career working with 10-year-olds because they are pure of heart and, of course, brutally honest. Through all the years, Heidi has always stayed true to her values, and despite her often accurate claim that this can be a weird job, she has always said she would never have considered doing anything else, as it has been a career well spent giving back to others. As Heidi's colleagues and coworkers, she has always helped us keep things in perspective and has brought levity to even the most difficult situations. Heidi is not only our teammate, but our friend, and she will be dearly missed by every member of our Hawkins family.
Well, I guess I would say that I am not much of a community servant. I am not selfless, I know this for sure, and I don't even have a dog. But I would say that I wanted to come here tonight to kind of bring closure to my long career here and to thank everyone, including my colleagues, my parents, and the school board for allowing me to teach here because I just loved it. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Mr. Brenner coming forward to announce some retirees from Maltby Intermediate School. And Mr. Ayton.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having this too. This is wonderful. Appreciate it. We have three wonderful people retiring from Maltby Intermediate School. The first one I'd like to speak about is one of the few people that's been at Maltby longer than I have been there. That's Katie Oleski, who's one of our parapros. Katie attended, she's a Brighton grad, K-12, as did her 5 children, several of whom were students of mine. She was a stay-at-home mom until her youngest went to school. In 1998, she started at Horning, and in 1999, she came to Maltby. Best decision ever. I didn't write that, she did. She also works football security. She started working at the Bullpup Club 7 years ago, supervising our kids before and after school. And she has a total of 25 years worked. In retirement, she's looking forward to spending time at her cabin on Lake Michigan and with her grandkids. Katie is an absolute tireless worker and resource for the students that she assists. She's a perfect mix of tough and tender and a warm demander who always works to get the best out of her students. So that's Katie Oleski. Also retiring, we have Barb Emery. And I asked each of our retirees to give me a little background of things I don't know about them. And if this isn't so Barb, this is exactly Barb. She says, I'm not very exciting. And that's Barb in a nutshell. Not that she's not exciting. She's very modest and she doesn't like the spotlight. In fact, this is probably horrifying for her. Barb was born and raised in Michigan. She came from a very small town where dad was a local veterinarian, mom was a 5th grade teacher. She's a Spartan for her degree and her master's degree. Taught a total of 27 years, but had a break in the middle when she stayed home with her 3 kids. Started teaching in East Lansing 1st grade, had always taught lower elementary until being moved to Maltby 6th grade and have loved the move. Again, she wrote that, I didn't. And I will admit that I recruited Barb for a full year. So I'd like my other principals to know I'm doing that. I recruited Barb for a full year before I got her to come over to Maltby from Spencer. Yeah, because I knew it was her destiny to be a 6th grade teacher at Maltby. She has 3 grown children, 3 grandchildren, plans to visit them in Oregon, Texas, and Spring Lake, Michigan. Loves to travel, very curious what it will be like to travel on days that are not school breaks. I'm curious about that too. Worried about missing school. So I've already signed up to coach cross country and girls on the run, which she does. Barb is a kind, caring teacher. She works really hard to know and help her students. She's a quiet leader in the building, sharing her teaching wisdom without ever wanting the spotlight. I can't tell you how many times I said, Barb, that's really cool. Will you talk to the staff about that at the staff meeting? She's like, oh, okay. I got to talk her into it because she doesn't want any fanfare, but she's a rock star. She's a supportive teammate, always has a smile, a hello, and a genuine, how are you doing? Barb is an avid runner and is affectionately known as the machine by the people that run with her because she's that good of a runner and she tires them out. And Barb is an amazing teacher and colleague. We will miss her. We wish her the best in her retirement.
I'd like to recognize Dave Kilwald, one of our PE teachers who's retiring this year. He's a lifelong resident of Brighton, a BHS grad of 1976. Played football, wrestling, and track here at Brighton High. Graduated from Northern Michigan, began coaching, working sub in Brighton. Took a couple years in Wisconsin, came back, has a couple kids that graduated and went through BHS, and now has 3 grandkids. And he's looking forward to spending time with his grandkids, playing softball, getting out on the lake. Now, the thing I know about Dave is that we routinely take over his classroom. We take his gym all the time for assemblies and this, that, and other thing. I mean, we took over it today. And David's always rolling with the punches. It's always about the kids. What works best for our building? What's great about Maltby? How can he help? And that's Dave. And that every time Dave goes, yeah, all right, let's just do it. And he does. He has that kind of attitude. That's what makes him a great teacher. The kids love him. They know when they get to PE, they're going to be moving because they walk out of there sweaty and smelly. So that they know that Dave is going to get them active and talk about being active and being lifelong athletes and being people that are active just like Dave himself. So we appreciate him and we wish you all luck, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you and congratulations on the retirement. And we appreciate all of you have done for our students in our district. And it really, your efforts are what makes this district so amazing and successful. And we really appreciate your talents and your energy and all that you've given to the district over the years. So thank you very much on behalf of the board.
All right. We have 4 retirees to recognize, so I'm going to call forward Mr. Renner from Scranton Middle School. And Richard Browder, Food Service Director.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're here to celebrate the one. I don't recognize you without your hat. Put your hat with you? Put it on. Let's see. All day, right? Celebrate. This is a big, yeah, put it on. There you go. I wish the camera could see. Well, there you go. That takes guts. That takes guts. Well done. Well done. Well, on behalf of Mr. Borg and myself, all of the Scranton community, Mrs. Ellett, thank you for what you've done. Not only are you a staple at Scranton, it's my first year here. You welcomed me in, you brought me in, but you also provide the love and the care each time that you serve food, whether it's the morning, whether it's the afternoon. You provide that atmosphere for us just to go, okay, it's a break in the action. And that there you are, greeting all of us with a warm smile. So on behalf of everyone, including Buckley, the therapy dog, but don't tell Karen. He does visit the cafeteria every once in a while. We are remaining in the health code, so there's that. Thank you for that. We hope that you enjoy your retirement in South Carolina and the time with your family. And now it's time for them to wait on you and serve you as you've taken the time to serve all of us. So thank you.
So I've been working with Dorinda since 2008. Dorinda has moved around the district in different schools and different positions, always as the number 2 person. And I always said, Dorinda, don't you want to be the manager? And she never wanted to aspire to do that. But every manager who's worked with her has used her as their right-hand man. And everyone has appreciated it. Dorinda's been dedicated to quality and consistency. And it's shown through the meals that she's prepared for students over the last 15 years. And I just want to let Dorinda know that I and everyone in our department appreciate what you've done. And thank you very much.
Get on camera.
Why not?
Turn around, do a spin. There you go. Okay.
Thank you very much. Enjoy South Carolina.
Thank you, I will.
Okay, and last but not least, we have from our high school, we have our principal, Gavin Johnson.
He had one more. Richard did. Richard had.
Richard,
Mr. Newman up with me. Sorry.
That's okay.
I call my bodyguard, but
Yeah.
Mr. Newman,
Hold
on.
She's from Maltby, student nutrition.
You're fine.
Thank you.
You're good. Thank you. It's been a long night already.
Oh, thank you.
You deserve a snack.
They really wanted to. Thank you. No,
So this is Adam Newman. When I first started Brighton High School, he wasn't working in the building, and I kept hearing these words about this great guy, this great dude. Well, Adam was overseas serving our military at the time and took a break from teaching, so he's also a veteran besides being a retiring teacher. So let's give him a round of applause for his service, please. Service to Brighton High School, families come into my office a lot of times, and the kids will say, I like math, or I really like this, or I really love history. When a student tells me they really love history and they want a really good history teacher, one who loves history, we send them that way. Mr. Newman is demanding of his kids. He's a great history teacher. He's a great lover of history. He's a great lover of our military and our armed forces, and he teaches our kids with what I will call old school. That's a compliment to an old man like me. So Adam expects a lot from his kids. So as a teacher, he is second to none, and I send my kids who love history to Mr. Newman. So that is as a teacher, he's a great person. Again, as a veteran, though, as a brother of a person in the Marine Corps, I know how much they give their family. So Adam had to give away from teaching and going away across the country, or across the ocean, to be away from his family. So he's a good man. And that's what, when you're looking for people to work for you in a school, you can learn how to teach subjects, but you can't learn how to be a good man. So Adam is a good husband and a good father and a good man. So that's more important than being a good teacher. So I appreciate that of you the most. We've bonded over a few things. One is our love of history and government. Second is love of deer hunting. And the third is love of beer. So Adam, I'm going to buy you a few craft beers coming up here, sir. I appreciate you.
Okay, we do have one more from our food service department. So Mr. Browder is going to come forward with Mr. Brenner.
So I'm here today to give tribute to Donna Chaika. Donna's been a district employee here since 2003. Worked in many capacities, but many of you will recognize the scones she made when she was the baker a few years ago. We still haven't figured out how to do that yet. So before you leave, we need the recipe. Donna is one of those people who finds things to improve and does them and then asks for permission later. But it's always the right call when she does that. She's a leader, a born leader, but she does it in a soft and subtle way. And people don't realize that she's actually telling them what to do. She's so nice about it. Everyone who's worked under her as their leader has never wanted to leave that location. So I've just really appreciated working with her. I've learned a lot from her on how to motivate people and do it with a smile on my face. So thank you, Donna, very much.
And Donna is just that. She's a calm, kind presence in our cafeteria, and she greets everybody with a smile. And I can't tell you how many countless times she's tracked me down because she was concerned about a student. I mean, she really cares about the kids, and she runs a wonderful kitchen and a wonderful operation. And we were just blessed to have her for these many years in our kitchen. So thank you.
I just want to thank Brighton Schools for giving me the opportunity to do a fun job. I just love the kids. I really do. I just love the kids. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all of our retirees, and thank you to all of our staff for another successful school year. We are going to move, our next item was going to be a strategic plan item, and we're going to move that to next month, expedite just a little bit here tonight. We're going to talk about some exciting things that are done at the elementary level with our career awareness, some amazing things our staff put together working with our PTOs, and well, that'll be a great conversation at a future meeting here. Very briefly, before we get to our budget hearing, I wanted to mention a conversation, a topic that Mr. Storm has brought to us at the board, talking about digitizing Brighton. We've had some good conversation on that, and we've received some quotes around doing an IT assessment as a district. We've had a couple good companies that are options for us, but I would like to recommend that we work with Plant Moran, the quote that I shared with the Board of Education. I'd like to engage with them. I'd like to move forward. Both companies that we worked or that we received quotes from are very capable and excellent companies. But I think that Plant Moran is probably the best fit. They do a lot of work with schools. So I'm looking for some board consensus to move forward. They will examine our current state and make recommendations on ways to improve in the future.
No. Don't need a vote.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll engage with them tomorrow, and we'll get the ball rolling. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ingleter, who's going to do the annual budget hearing, and he'll walk us through that.
Thank you. This budget hearing is called to order under Public Act 2 of 1968 as amended, which does require that a board hold a public hearing prior to adopting a budget. One of the main things we need to talk about first and foremost is the hearing is required. Part of the hearing is to state that this budget is based on 18 mills of ad valorem taxes that are levied against all of the non-homestead properties in the district. That is in accordance with the L 4029 that we passed at the last meeting. That's one of the stipulations of having a budget hearing, is to make sure that we let the public know that we will be levying 18 mills moving forward for operations. Essentially, this budget is not perfect. We're still waiting on the state to complete their budget, which they have not done as of yet. We're still waiting. I thought maybe we'd see some movement on a conference committee, but nothing. It's all quiet out of Lansing right now. So nothing has moved forward yet. That leaves us up in the air on a lot of things, but that's normal for this time of year. School budgets are required to be adopted before July 1st. The state doesn't have their budget start until October 1st. So there's often a gap there. And in addition to that, we often don't even know what our student count is for the budget to go into effect for this next year. So this budget, the only thing that I can tell you with any certainty is that it will change over the next year. With that, the following parameters were used in developing the 2023-2024 budget. Blended student count is going to be up from 9,192 up to a count of 9,795. The per pupil foundation allowance is a guesstimate right now, but it's going to increase from 9,150. We used a number of 9,608, which is what the governor has proposed. As I told you at previous meetings, the governor was a 5% increase. I think the House was a 4%, and the Senate was a 6%. So we just used the 5% number moving forward. There was increases in categorical funding for 147C and 147A2 retirement offsets. Those are to offset the increase in the retirement rate that we'll talk about in a second. We've talked in the past that the retirement rate is technically over 44%. The state does subsidize that rate down to this year it was 28.23%. It will be moving next year up to 31.34%, or at least that's what was in the governor's proposal moving forward. That is typically carried forward from the governor's proposal, and it doesn't typically change much because it's all based on actuarial numbers anyway. There should be an increase based on what the state budget proposals are now in our at-risk funding. We did calculate in negotiated agreements for wages and step increases. And then there's also a statutory increase to the health insurance hard caps that will begin in January 1, I'm sorry. And that is going to be a 4.1% increase moving forward. So we factored all those things in. And with that, the general fund budget, we're expecting at this point to move to a revenue figure of about 120 million. And the expenditure figure for next year, as of right now, to be about 115 million. So we're anticipating that we're going to add to our fund balance next year, should everything stay the same. Like I said, this is a shell budget that's moving forward based on what we roughly know at this time, but it will change as we move forward. Moving on from there, the food service budget is really up in flux. And Richard, I see had left, but that one is going to, we put together what it's based on today. Moving forward, though, I think all three of the budget proposals out there are actually looking to fund free meals again through the state, using state and some federal funds. So we haven't accounted for that because we haven't seen anything coming through at this point. So we just kind of moved forward and rolled that budget forward. Student activity fund, a few years ago, we moved those from fiduciary accounts into the special revenue funds. And we do have to budget for those now, but there's really no way to tell what's going to be in there, revenue and expense. So we just kind of used an estimate based on what the funds, and those are mostly fundraising accounts. So the funds that they raised this year and the expenses that went out. Community education, looking to, that money is struggling a little bit for next year because you have a large preschool grant that's dropping off from the feds. I think there's some, we're going back to the time when community education is costing the general fund money. So we're transferring money there next year to the tune of about $370,000. And we've accounted for that and brought the fund balance down to zero. And then lastly, the capital projects fund that we have put together for replacement of turf and the BCPA seating at some future date. We've set there as a tradition over the last probably 6 or 7 years, $50,000 over into that fund, and also tried to account for what the BCPA seat revenue will be, which is $1 per seat or $1 per ticket sold. And that, for now, is the overall budget picture that we're looking at for next year. This is a public hearing, so we are going to open it at this time for any comments from the public, if there are any.
And to clarify, that would be on budgetary topics. There will be public comments. in a
This
few
is not the
moments.
call.
This is not called the
called
public.
Okay.
This is part of the
Okay.
budget hearing. Nobody? I'll open it up to the board for any comments.
These are pretty much the numbers exactly, actually, that we reviewed in the finance committee.
No, these have moved from the finance committee. I told you at that time that they were going to still be
move a little
moving
more.
through the year. I did add in some things. There were some projects that we would like to get done at Horning and Spencer that we added some budget numbers in for that.
What did we add? for those?
I think I put in 200 for a project at Horning and 100 for a project at Spencer.
What are those projects specifically?
We're still looking at them, but the plan was to put a foldable wall in Horning like there is at Spencer in the cafeteria. And in addition, at Spencer, because Spencer and Horning are the same footprint, Horning has walls between their open concept classrooms.
Yep.
So they would like to look over at Spencer at getting the same thing done.
And that was brought to us from administration from those buildings and through the,
That's correct.
okay.
Yep. So we did make that change. I did budget in some money for the dog program. And then obviously we were finishing up the community ed program, so we did budget that in. So those are really the big changes from the time we met last
back
week.
up the dog program. So the dog program will be included in the general fund expenditures then.
Correct. We did put that in under the 212 function account.
Okay, and what have we allocated for that?
I allocated for an unknown of, we put $30,000 in there.
Because we're currently carrying a balance of about 40,000, correct?
Right. The balance is in the fiduciary account. And the plan is to leave that money for the replacement of future dogs, but to budget the operating expenses out of the general fund at this time.
Right. So technically next year there'll be $70,000 in usable funds for whatever it would be, 40 for new dogs.
No, not, yes, technically.
We won't. Do we know what the annual budget is, what it takes to have the dog program?
So we're working on the dog program, and we have a meeting tomorrow where we're going to be working on some of these things. We'll be able to report to the board specifically, but we had needed to get some work on how much it costs per dog annually, and so we're going to have a meeting tomorrow, and we'll have a better idea on some of those topics in the future.
Which is great.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. And then also was a discussion on for robotics going forward. They're going to have the same budget they had last year.
That's correct.
Okay, and how much was that?
For just over 48,000 is what's budgeted in there.
And then the other thing that the board is aware of, but maybe Andy's newer, but it's kind of I call it in the banking industry a dream sheet for the proposed budget. It's just an outline. It's kind of what you're shooting at, but it doesn't have anything concrete yet because the numbers aren't really there. And I think that's fair. Now, in the old days, I was like, no, we can't approve anything like that. But the reality is you have to.
You have to.
And you make the adjustments as we go forward. And I think that's fair to say that's the standard operating procedure. And so then I, as your finance chair, would be in support of what you brought to us.
In all actuality, the board has to adopt something
Yep.
prior to July 1, or no money can be legally spent. So that July 14th or 13th payroll would be a real problem.
Well, that's good. Well, this looks good. So thank you, Michael.
You're calling it capital fund, I think, right, for the turf replacement?
Yes.
What do you have in there for that, or how do you plan on funding that, through the general fund?
Yeah, every year we've transferred $50,000 over into that fund.
Since when?
I think 2017 would be my guess.
Okay.
I mean, before I got here, but I know that it had started. It could have been 2016, but.
And that's turf only?
No, there's two things that are slated for that money. We transfer $50,000 over there for the turf specifically. The BCPA on every ticket sold will add $1 into that as well.
But that's been an ongoing fund for quite a long time.
That's in there. I think the last time we checked last year was about $60,000 that had been generated. And that's for the recovering or repurposing of the seats when the time comes.
Right.
So just trying to stay ahead of that. You know, obviously things slowed down during COVID, so the funds coming in for that portion of it were down, but obviously nobody was sitting on the seats either, so.
So there's roughly 60 in there for the seats at this time?
Roughly speaking.
And then what do we have now for the turf?
I don't have a balance sheet with me right now, but I want to say it was about 400.
400?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Question.
when you were talking about the increases to costs for the health insurance premiums.
Right.
We joined a consortium several years ago to help keep the cost of those premiums down. How is the consortium performing compared to increases that other districts might be seeing if they're not part of it?
You know, we're still seeing as a consortium because we're spreading the risk across so many lives that our actual increases from Mesa are lower than what the state averages is for Mesa. I mean, obviously, each district is, case specific depending on loss ratios and everything that goes into the actuarial determination of insurance rates. But we are seeing better than expected. I know there's at least one district in the county that wasn't in the consortium that was now looking to possibly join. At that time, they had rates that were better than what the consortium was doing, and now things have changed a little bit on that end. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but that's a subject of bargaining as well. So
Thank you.
Mr. Storm?
On the cover page, Mike, under added needs, looks like the change from 2023 to 2024 is about just under $1 million.
you're looking at this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering what's driving the $900,000 plus change?
Yep. Give me 1 sec, Andy. Oh, okay. So a large portion of that is going to be obviously the wage increase, retirement increase, and health increase in all of those sub functions. But the big kicker there that kind of shows it going up is there's another $600,000 of summer school that's moved out of summer school and into that added needs area that's funded out of the 11T grant for this summer and next summer.
So it's grant funded?
Correct. So the grant expenses are in that function.
Okay, and so then I'm assuming then the grant dollars are captured on the top then?
Correct.
Okay. General admin shows a $70,000 increase, which is almost a 10%. I think it shows 9.2% increase year over year. And again, just wondering what's driving general admin up 9.2%?
Yeah. We had some increased contracted services in the Board of Ed area for audit and legal services, and then you had increased wages, retirement, and health, the typical areas that pumped it up.
And so I'm assuming the retirement portion is related to administration then?
Right.
Okay. Next one is operations, $1.1 million year over year increase, 16.2%.
Yep. So I know it gets a little cliche, but obviously in those areas, wages, retirement, and health. But then in the operations area specifically, you have an increased capital outlay to cover the BEC HVAC and window replacement out of the 11T grant that we were able to get done. So that's a much larger. And then also in the security area under operations, we do have increased supplies and equipment under the security grant that's funded under Section 97.
Mike, I don't know what type of information you have available on your computer. Do you have the ability to share the net impact to the district minus the grant dollars?
I do not currently.
Do you have a rough idea?
No, not off the top of my head.
Is that something you'd be willing to send to the board, just what the net impact to the district is, net for the grant funding?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
The last one on this sheet that I have a question about is transportation. So it's up 12% year over year.
Correct. So along with our wages, retirement, and health, the LESA staff has the same thing, and they have changes in their handbook that are going into effect for this year with increases for the drivers and then the mechanics. And But in addition to that, we added in some money to replace 4 buses for our fleet.
Okay. Well, the last item I have related to the budget, it's interesting, as I've asked questions about these particular items, is the reference, a continued reference to wages, retirement, and benefits driving increases.
Sure.
Today, I actually had the opportunity to meet with a number of education assistants that support Brighton area schools, some of whom have over 2 decades of service to our community. It was eye-opening to me as a new member of our school board how we treat our education assistants in Brighton. I have children who have benefited greatly from the support from the education assistants that help our school district. Some of my children do receive special education here in Brighton. And it was eye-opening to me when I went to meet with these professionals in person to discover the following. EAs were never afforded additional benefits granted to other BAS support employees in our district. Days not worked for any reason, such as illness, personal time off, unexpected building closures beyond 2 per school year, bereavement had to be made up or were left unpaid. This was startling to me. Over a period of 9 years, education assistants had only received a total of 80 cents as an hourly increase in Brighton. This amounted to approximately $621 over those 9 years. It was only this past school year in which EAs received another $2 to bring their current hourly rate to $17.12. It's eye-opening when you look at some of the statistics. Substitute teachers in our district are paid $20 an hour. Building substitute teachers are paid $25 an hour. And I also discovered after meeting with a number of these education assistants, the borderline, trying to think of the correct way to phrase this in our board meeting this evening, more of a retaliatory environment that they live with day to day where their jobs are threatened for bringing forward concerns about compensation. And some who've actually been affected by the administration that we have here in our district as a result of concerns they brought forward. The request from the education assistants that I met with today mentioned that they're seeking a starting hourly pay rate of $18 to $22.50 with step considerations based on years of service. Yearly longevity compensation based on years of service. Currently, support staff receives $500 for 5 years, $600 for 10 years, $700 for 15 years, $800 for 20 years, and $900 for 25 years. Reasonable personal time off, paid holidays, building closures, and bereavement based on a percentage of hours worked per year. Currently, support staff receive 10 personal time off days, 10 paid holidays, 3 building closure days, 5 bereavement days. Provide EAs with a working agreement that includes a schedule for compensation adjustments consistent with other BS employment groups. So I made a commitment to the educational assistants that I met with that I would bring this forward during our public meeting this evening. And I would like to ask my fellow board members to support their proposal. And as part of our budget discussions this evening, make sure we have funding in our budget to support the requests from these education assistants who work hard and tirelessly in our district.
So in that, I responded to put their concerns in the finance committee meeting, at a meeting. I reviewed their concerns as well. Trusting that it's all factual, it seems an area that needs to be looked at and addressed because, again, if we can say what I'm thinking, if we can write a check for $6 million last year, we certainly shouldn't forget the other staff that's here. They did get a bump of the $2 in that program, which was a beginning of getting it right. And maybe that's how I would support it. I mean, I can support what you're saying, 80, 100%, but I wonder if we shouldn't run it through the committee process, look at it and bring it back
because we have time. Their season's over, school's done, and it would have the, similar impact that you're thinking. So that would be probably best for.
So, I mean, John, you've heard me mention at the board meetings before and on the record for the benefit of the public. At times, the committee structure that we use is, it creates and introduces an enormous amount of bureaucracy to the process of taking action on behalf of the public that we serve. I find it hard to believe if we pay substitute teachers $20 an hour and building substitute teachers $25 an hour, how is it that someone who's provided 15 to 20 years of service to this district as an educational assistant does not get paid the same amount? It doesn't make any sense. And so
Dr. Lawler, could you provide some input and clarity to that question?
Sure. I think this is a great idea going to the finance committee because it's a little bit more complicated than it seems on the surface. The biggest thing, and it goes all the way back, we have information all the way back to 2012 with Dr. Suri. These are 100% grant funded, and there's limitations on what money can be spent towards. So I think this is, it would be worthwhile talking through those challenges. It doesn't mean it's impossible. And obviously we increased a 15% pay increase this past year. What else was added? Snow days were added. I think there's one other. So there were some things that were added this year.
After 9 years, and the increase over 9 years was 80 cents.
So I've been with the district since 2020. So I can't speak.
So it's not your fault.
No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying I can't speak to previous, but we do have some historical. Dr. Mosier, did you want to say anything on this or?
I mean, I can just reiterate what Dr. Outlaw is saying. So these were grant funded positions. These were things that been in place prior to us coming here. And there is specific requirements under some of the grant funded. So they're under Title I and 31A positions. They're not full-time positions, just so you understand that as well. From when I got here, I will tell you every time there was an increase through paras or any type of unit, they did get an increase regardless of what that increase was. So if we gave everybody a 1%, they got the 1%. I know that's changed, but just so you know, they did follow the same suit. And in this past one, we also followed again with the BESPA agreement. So we do try to keep them in line with that. They have met with us, with myself, with Mr. Scaling, Dr. Outlaw. I do know there was a proposal given to them. I don't remember it off the top of my head, so I can tell you there are some things that we were looking into in providing them some additional benefits to their role as well.
Do you feel that they should be paid equivalent to substitute teachers, Ms. Mosher?
So I would look at somebody's job duties to help determine what their pay should be. Okay,
just a
yeah.
fair
So
question.
I
I'm
would
just
say I would
curious.
like to know what the job duties are and probably the demand of a market to understand how I would pay. That's just me personally from a business
So can you
background.
just say, so if someone has served this district for 18 years in the capacity of it being an educational assistant, helping students improve their learning, and something Dr. Outlaw loves to talk about, test scores, do you feel that they deserve to be paid equivalent to or more than a substitute teacher who fills in randomly when someone's not here at school?
So I'll stick with my first answer, which is I think it depends on their job responsibilities and how late they're working and things like that. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. So somebody who works 20 hours to maybe a full day might look different, or how often. Demand, I think, is another thing. I would say that one of our items in the proposal was to give them longevity and look at that as another option to help secure or keep them here, recognizing that they've been here for a longer period of time. So I will say we are looking into those pieces, Mr. Storm, but I wouldn't say I can make a judgment call on how they should get paid. I'm not going to do that here. I think it's unfair without seeing a job description and doing a comparison of needs. That's just at the table.
Is it possible for Brighton area schools to comply with the requirements of the grant funding and pay them more money?
So one of the things we were talking about is where that money would come from, which is general fund. So that's why we were saying, so anything.
But it's possible.
Of course it is. That's why we were saying, like, look at other ways of where that would come. So when it comes out of grant funds, we said this is how it gets paid. So for instance, Title I services, you have to be working with students. So the snow days or whatever, an act of God days, we pay those out of general fund. Currently we do that, right? So you can't, so there's things like that that we're very cautious in. Now, we've taken it and said, okay, how else can we look at funding? And now we did have these conversations. What are we willing to take out of general fund to start supporting? That's all.
The point is, the grant part of it is immaterial. I mean, it comes up, it was shared with us via email correspondence. We were encouraged not to speak to the educational assistants by the superintendent of this district. I'm glad I went and met with them. And the fact that it's been grant funded for how long? How long has it been grant funded in Brighton area schools? Anyone know? 20 years?
Oh, I can't even answer that.
So
A long time?
I cannot tell you the date. I mean,
It's a
I
long
don't know.
time.
When I got here,
A
it was
long
grant
time.
funded.
Been a long time. So the reality is, the administration and the school board have the ability to solve this problem and still comply with the grant funding that helps support the program and give the educational assistants the increase that is warranted. That's the facts.
I think the suggestion that the finance committee take this up and look at what's possible and come back to us with a recommendation that's supported by the administration would be appreciated. Because I feel like there are a lot of questions here around what is possible without jeopardizing the grant funding. And questions about what that would mean to other areas of the budget that I would like to have answered. I certainly support the goal of ensuring that we are taking care of the employees that take care of our students. That has certainly always been something that I think that all of us here on the board have supported. So I would appreciate the extra input from the administration and from the finance committee.
Any other questions? Well, we just gotta close the,
This,
yeah.
yeah.
I just have a question. You mentioned that the general fund, you get $1 off of every ticket from the BCBA. Do they have a similar thing, like when our stadium is like rented out by tournaments and stuff? Is there a portion that also goes into like the turf budget?
There is not.
So I'm a musical mom, so I'm just like, hey, I have a lot of those events that the public have. I think that would be a good way to generate for the turf, because clearly they use it a lot for tournaments. And if the taxpayers are paying for all that for the students, it would be nice for the people that are outside of our community to kind of push into the wear and tear on that turf as well.
Would you like that in the finance committee meeting for our finance?
Well, I thought, I never knew about the $1 per ticket, so I was just wondering if there was also other things for our capital investments.
Open for discussion. It is.
Just an idea. And I will also say, just for you, I'm a teacher in Mulvey, and as much as, yes, educational assistants, they do work really hard. We can't do what we can do as teachers without the support. But the going rate, like I know in our school district in Mulvey, the starting rate's $13. It's not right, but I mean, it's not right for people to be taking care of our elderly in nursing homes and getting paid yucky wages too. It's just, that's the industry, that's the going rate. So I think it's nice to look into it, but it is just what it is. That's where it is.
Well, the good news is all of us sitting up here at this table, ma'am, ran for public office and were voted into these roles by the community. And we actually have the ability in Brighton to change that.
No, I just wanted to reiterate that that is the industry rate. So it's not just right
Or
there.
Weberville, they're about $20 an hour.
It's
They don't have
everywhere.
benefits.
What's that?
They're through EduSystem.
Which is why we're going to change it for the better here in Brighton.
Okay.
With that, we'll close the budget hearing.
Okay. That concludes the superintendent report. So thank you so much.
That moves us to the call to the public. This is the opportunity for anyone who would like to address the board, the ability to do so. Our protocol is to fill out a card at the rear of the room, place it in the box to the left of Dr. Mosier. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Ms. Marks will be keeping track of the time. When there's 30 seconds left in your 3 minutes, she will give you a yellow warning card. And when your 3 minutes is up, she will raise the red card. The first card that I have is Jason Ringett.
Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, let your Holy Spirit fill this room, soften everyone's hearts. Bless the school board with wisdom and discernment. Give them eyes to see and ears to hear. Brighton School needs to return to God, prayer, academics to our schools. Open up school board meetings with prayer. The world is caught up with what offends everyone, when we should worry about what offends God. We are in the fight for our soul nation. We are in a fight for our children and their innocence. Look at what our kids and their learning and what's being shoved down their throats, twisting the truth and manipulating them and believe to lies. Everyone knows that the Democrat Party is evil. Look at what they have done to our children, to their education, destroying their morals and their innocence is beyond evil. The Democrat Party, who supports castrating children, mutilates children, perverts children, grooms children, murders children, indoctrinates children, while education is being neglected. We send our kids to school to get educated, not indoctrinated. We have 3 school board members who fight for our kids, for their safety, education, and fight to get rid of obscene, pornographic, sexual, explicit books out of our school libraries. I say this with love to the other 4 board members who turn a blind eye to the staff putting out surveys asking school kids their preferred pronouns. Why do you allow pedophilia, grooming, LGBTQ, safe space science to be displayed within the schools? Why do you allow pornographic, sexual, explicit books into our school libraries, destroying our kids' innocence? Why do you support SEL, DEI? It has nothing to do with reading, writing, science, mathematics. 4 of the board members align themselves with the teachers union, allowing them to have an office in the high school. The majority of the teachers unions have nothing, or the majority of teachers union have been weaponized by the radical left to push woke agendas, woke ideologies, left-wing politicians, and left-wing school board members give their union the boot out of the schools. Those who struggle with gender dysphoria, 82% have considered suicide, which is heartbreaking. 40% attempted suicide in this woke culture. They keep pushing this idea. Anyone who identifies as trans, they don't get treatment for their mental health disorder. They just push to affirm. Why would anyone promote this kind of crap and puts our kids in harm's way? 20 years ago, teenage girls cut themselves. Do we normalize that still? No. Why would we create and normalize it? Everyday aspect of dysfunction. It's insane and dangerous to our kids, no different than Yellow Ribbon Week, which promotes more dysfunctions of depression, sexual assaults, and suicide within Brighton schools. Teenage girls are more easily manipulated by the media and culture pressures. Do you know if you put a group of healthy girls around a girl that has an eating disorder, that the healthier girls are more likely to develop an eating disorder just because they know the one? And it's a fact. 10 years ago, what was trendy for girls to have an eating disorder? Are we still normalizing that? Being this crazy climate pushing by the woke, the U.S. had 1 clinic to address gender dysphoria issues. Now we have over 300 clinics in the U.S. Some people want to argue why we have so many of these clinics. Now it's because socially acceptable. They are wrong. It is not true. We're all the 50 to 7-year-old trans people coming out now because it doesn't exist. This is a created problem. Thank you and God bless y'all.
Jennifer Bond.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Bond, and I'm just here to express gratitude for being in a K-12 experience in Brighton, the proud mom of the class of 2023 graduate, and over the past month or so, participate in a lot of wonderful activities celebrating the class. And I know I joke about it, I'm like the Brighton difference, but truly, as I said, I do teach in another district, and to compare and to see all of the wonderful things that our kids do. I was just telling Mr. Johnson and I told Mr. Evans on Saturday night at the senior all-night party just how wonderfully respectful these kids were, how gracious they were for the volunteering, and just a lot of point of pride for Brighton area schools. And the Brighton difference, I really do think that it's giving students a voice. My son was able to be in leadership, in class council, to see senior survivor through my son's eye, even though I was a community member, seeing all of it and giving money upon money for all of those things. But to see my son knowing his classmates and everything, it was just really nice. And I would encourage anything that you can do to provide projects or classes that involve students that get to really truly have ownership over their learning. Would benefit any class curriculum because it's really what's going to prepare them for real life. I mean, as much as the exams they're going to take tomorrow, probably not as much as some of the experiences that they got raising the thousands and thousands of dollars and planning a graduation that was fabulous. And because of those activities, I know my son is going to be better suited for his future. So thank you for allowing and supporting all of those programs that are within Brighton area schools. And I know that they'll grow up becoming people like Karen Story, who we honored tonight, and having that servant leadership. I know that they're going to be people like Lois and like Sarah baking hundreds and hundreds of pastries for the French bakery. There are people like Alicia, who spent her middle of the night on Sunday officially volunteering, and the people that are around our community that rallied when there was a low amount of people volunteering for the senior all-night party. And when Saturday night came, we didn't have any problems because people stepped up. And that's something that is wonderful about our community. And I just want to thank you for stepping up and being a servant leader as well, but mostly just celebrating all that was wonderful about this past weekend, because it was truly prideful. Even my husband didn't have that experience, and he was in tears at the commencement, because he just said, I'm proud of our community, proud of our son, and it is the Brighton difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, Jennifer's son was the one who sang the solo at graduation, by the way.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Meyer, for the picture. Seeing that, I'm like, just nice to know people like that, like from his point of view, then getting his.
That's one of the benefits of being on the stage, is to be able to capture that.
Thank
So,
you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Okay, no further cards? All right, that closes the call to the public and moves us into for action portion of our agenda. Item A, the regular meeting minutes of May 22, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to the Human Resources Report. Dr. Elwell.
In our human resources report, we have one resignation for personal reasons, and we have one transition where a person is moving into special education. Are there any questions at all on the human resource report?
Yes. With the departure of Mr. Ingleter, what are we doing to find another finance person?
So we have posted that position. As Mr. Trombley has just shared, we are losing our assistant superintendent for finance. It's going to be a huge loss for the district. He's a very well-respected finance director. We have posted that position, and we've been talking with recruiters, and we're going to work very hard to get somebody in place before he leaves, which will be at the end of July.
So are we going to go out and look for
absolutely
headhunter to come in and search, or what's the?
So
I'm
I
trying to get
have
what the
spoken to
process-
recruiters. I have spoken to recruiters, multiple, and so we are going to be aggressively pursuing people. So it's a very small pool of people that are in this group. It's a very tight knit group of people, We've already tapped into that a little bit. I've had a number of conversations already. We're going to be very aggressive in our recruiting, because it's a big seat that's left there. And Mr. Ingleter is an outstanding assistant superintendent for finance. We're losing a good one.
When do you anticipate bringing candidates to the board?
So as soon as we get candidates, we're going to start screening candidates right away. As soon as we get
Who's
them.
involved in the screening process?
Screening process, that'll be administration. We'll do the initial screening, and then there would be committees and so on and so forth. So it'd be follow the district procedure.
And can you share what that district procedure is, Dr. Outlaw?
Sure. As far as assistant superintendent, I've not done that during my time, but I can use the process that we used. I'm super excited. We're going to be announcing Hilton's new principal next. Aaron back here. And I will talk about what we did with Aaron. So we took candidates posted those candidates and recruited for candidates for principal position. We had 29 candidates. We had 14 from that group that we invited to do video interviews, where we had a series of questions where we were able to do a pre-screen with those candidates. From that, we narrowed that group to 6 outstanding candidates that we brought in for an initial screening interview on a small scale. Then we narrowed that list to 4, and we had a very large committee where we had teachers and parents and people that were involved. From that, we narrowed to 2, where we did background checks and we did more targeted questioning. Each candidate has strengths and weaknesses where we really targeted specific to them. The previous round, everybody has the same questions, but when we get to the final round, we really hone in on the things that we really need to know, the difference makers for those candidates. Then ultimately, the administration, which would be myself, Dr. Mosier, anybody else in the administration, we narrow that list and we make a recommendation to the Board of Education. And I'm super excited because I think we hit a home run with Hilton. So it will be the same process that we would follow when we talk about assistant superintendent. The difference is going to be you're not going to have 29 candidates to choose from. It's a very small group of people. I've been in this business for 27 years, and finding an outstanding ethical assistant superintendent like Mr. Engelter, somebody who goes to bat for kids every day, we're going to work our butts off to get a good person in place, but it's going to be a small group. We're going to go out and get a good one. So.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the human resources report as presented?
Support.
Ms. Reed, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item C, the Hilton principal. Get a little precursor to that, Dr. O.
All right, yes. Well, I just walked through the process, and it was a good process. So I want to thank Chad Scaling for leading that process. I want to thank all of the teachers and staff members and parents and principals that were part of that process and offering feedback. It was very valuable. It was a thorough process, like as we do with all of our hiring in this district. And I just want to say thank you to all of those people. I'm extremely excited to be announcing one of our own is going to be moving from the classroom into a principal role. I can tell you, I've been in the district for 3 years, and I've had a chance to get to know Erin. And she just has such great skills, great poise. She's smart, talented. She's got a strength that's a quiet strength. She's not bombastic or anything like that. She is just very calm, but people listen to her because they respect her because she's earned it. And I can also tell you she is an instructional leader, which is something that we need to really focus in on instruction. And she's going to do an outstanding job there. We had a couple fantastic candidates in this. One of the big difference makers for her is what we think she's going to do culturally at Hilton. And being able to bring parents in, teachers in, and to be able to build on the community at Hilton. So we're super excited about it. I'll give you just a brief overview. She's a Michigan State Spartan for elementary education. She's got a master's in teaching and curriculum with a concentration in psychology. She has a postmaster's certificate from Eastern Michigan. She has taught in California. She's taught abroad. She has taught in a Title I school, and then she has been with Brighton since 2018 and has excelled in many roles. Not only is she a teacher, but she is a teacher leader, and she's on many committees. She's in many other leadership roles where she works closely with others, and I'm really proud to be bringing her forward as our nominee, and I think we've hit a home run here.
Do we have a motion?
This is the
Do we have a motion? Moved by Dr. Krebs, supported by Mr. Conley. Any discussion?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Very excited.
Well,
I think we know how this vote's turning out, just so you know.
all right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Congratulations. Did they tell you that you had to give a speech? No. All right, then I won't make it that as long as they didn't share it.
starting here, the reason that my husband and I decided to move here and start our family here is just because we fell in love with the community. So I'm very excited to be doing that also at Hilton.
Well, we're looking forward to your leadership at Hilton. It'll be Horning's loss, but Hilton's gain. So congratulations. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Next item D, appointment of representative to LESA PAC. Dr. Utley, you want to briefly address that?
Sure. Just a reminder for the audience, last month we talked about this. This is the special education advisory panel. We have to have a parent rep that's part of that. We had Catherine Morningside, who's been in that role, and she'd like to continue in that capacity heading forward. So this is our recommendation.
All right. We have a motion. Motion by Mr. Conley. Support by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to item E, the final budget 2022-2023. Do we have a motion to approve the final budget as presented? Motion by Mr. Conley. Support by Ms. Reed. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. Moves us to the next item, F, projected budget 2023-2024. Do we have a motion to approve the projected budget as presented? Moved by Ms. Conley.
Support.
Support by Dr. Krebs. Any further discussion?
Just that, so Andy brought up some very good points. Increases here, increases there. This is a projected budget. It's not inked in stone. It can be modified and tweaked according to the rules as funds become available or don't become available, depending on per pupil funding and all those if comes. It's a tough budget to try to approve it, I think. But again, understanding it more today, I don't have a problem with approving it because we know it will be molded correctly as we go forward. And
One other thing.
Thank you.
Sorry.
One of the budget related matters that, I've mentioned in prior board meetings, and we actually talked, I don't remember what meeting it was, regarding teachers in Brighton area schools and the fact that I think we all collectively believe in making sure that teachers in our district are very well compensated, and we want our district to be a destination of choice for the best teachers that we're able to provide to students in our community. I also have had multiple conversations with Dr. Outlaw regarding what avenues of opportunity exist to reduce costs in our district as it relates to utility expenses, gas, electricity consumption. And so a question I have, Dr. Outlaw, as we think of the new budget for next year, have you and Mike had the opportunity to discuss and talk through areas where we can reduce costs for utilities and electricity, natural gas, things of that nature?
He and I have not had that discussion, but I think it's a great area we can look at. So
I guess why haven't you? As a district, what's the, from a process
So
standpoint?
I'm just saying, I have not been in a direct conversation about utilities and gas with Mr. Engeltart. In developing a budget, that would be part of the work that he would do with his team. I just can't speak to it because he and I have not directly spoken about the utility cost.
Outside of the educational assistance that we referenced earlier, are there any other areas where you've tried to reduce costs in the district as you think of the budget for next year?
So no, we have not reduced cost. We've been in more of an adding mode with security and summer school because we have had so much grant funding that we have that's running out over the next year or two. So we have been more in an investment mode as a district, but I think looking at things like gas and utilities, I think that would be great. And I have somebody who's going to be coming in our next finance meeting that's going to share some perspective from a third party, and that might get some conversations started about some maybe areas that we can look at.
One thing too, Andy, we were discussing in the finance meeting, we have a budget, expenditure of almost $2 million in sub pay. And, those are areas that I'd love to see that be $1 million and have $1 million extra in general fund to do program development with. So I think you're on to strategically looking at each area and how can we, try to trim that down, because that's a real number. And I know in the superintendent and the group worked with the contracts, and we include some incentives for teachers not to use their days off. And so there's things like that, but I'm 100% supportive.
And then I think the other thing we've talked about at prior board meetings is the lab environments within Brighton area schools. So, I mean, is there funding to help support reinventing our lab spaces?
Sounds like.
Well, that's what we're doing right now in the bond, the bond committee's very much studying that. We're actually demoing one of the science rooms in the high school, probably what? In Friday or Monday, or it'll start,
That
and
was part of the 2020
Right.
vision. It's starting, they're working on
Yep.
it, and it was brought up, the board talked about it, it's happening, they're doing a prototype.
Yep.
And I'll be behind that with this, instead of building fund equity to a point that we don't need it, I'd much rather use those general fund resources towards doing those science labs and continuing to develop them as well as math.
And who's, just for new members like myself on the board, who's driving that initiative within the district? Like, who could we go to, who could I go to see what that vision looks like?
Yeah, happy to share with you. We had a presentation that we walked through as a bond committee with some of the ideas. Some of those were generated by the science teachers. They've met a couple times with us, but I have a presentation that I'd be happy to go through. I can share it with the full board. It just has some general ideas, but we're looking at some technology. There's some facility changes. Mr. Traum could probably explain this better, but changing from some of the static lab stations to more flexible furniture spacing that allows more flexibility for different types of science experiments. We had some great teachers at the high school that were part of the communication. They were checking with people all the way as far as California, finding out what other science teachers are doing, what are some of the new labs looking like, what's some of the new technology that they're using. So we've been brainstorming, and we shared some ideas at the bond committee, and I have a presentation I can share with you. Additionally, the science teachers continue to work on this. They have a list. They've been doing some research on technology that might push us forward. And they're supposed to be providing a list of some of the things within chemistry, physics, biology that may enhance that. So I haven't received that list yet, but what I'm saying is the work continues. So, and we're very open to ideas. There's people like yourself that have seen other school districts and other types of things. So very interested in ideas. There's only so many dollars that are remaining for this project at this point, for this pilot, but this is the chance for us to experiment with things that might push our science curriculum forward in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've been working on for a long time, certainly growing out of our efforts with the most recent bond to build the STEAM Center. So that's, I think, been a high priority for the administration and for the bond committee since we passed that bond. So that work has been ongoing for quite a while, and I'm happy to hear that we've got such a strong push to continue that work.
One last question related to it. Have we benchmarked any universities? I mean, we're fortunate to have, one of the best higher education universities in the world 10 minutes away from us, the U of M, Michigan State. Were any university lab environments benchmarked as part of the process? I see.
Yes, the science teachers, they collaborated with some of the science classrooms at University of Michigan, I think University of Michigan and I believe Michigan State. So they've communicated with them. What they found is that there's actually a middle school that Mrs. Marks connected us with that was actually probably more advanced than where our colleges are at right now. So there are high schools as well as universities that have some pretty neat things that I think we really should have some fun experimenting with. Science teachers are pretty energized by it, and they've been really engaged. And this C8 project, this classroom in C8, this model classroom, will give us a chance to experiment with some different things. The idea that we'll be able to grow out of that and say, this worked really well, and then we'll just expand from there. So.
I go back to when Gene Schutz was here, Jess Jardins, Dr. Nittles, Mr. Lundy are here now. They set some standards so high in that area, even with the facilities we have. And so I would love to see a compliment to them to develop to the highest level. So it's been in the vision for a long time. It has. And sometimes it gets, like you noticed going into the fourth grade classrooms and what's there, what's not there. These guys, historically, I mean, you can talk to anybody that's been to school here. And it's like, they said Sue Roseborough, for instance, you know, she was just an influence from career education to her ability to teach English to sister to professor now, probably because she had her. So I think we're all on that page. We really need to find like, again, what's proven to work. We don't need to experiment on, because if it's already proven to work, then we can be on the same page and build on that. But I look forward to that. And I do look forward to seeing these dollars that are at this time surplus dollars coming in and putting them categorized towards this area and at a very high level, maybe higher than we've ever done before. And I'd love to bring that through our committee and then back to the board and talk about it.
All right. All those in favor of approval of the projected budget 2023-2024 signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That moves us to item G, the pole barn. Mr. Trombley, you want to?
Sure. We spoke about this at the last meeting. It was on for future. This is going to be built at the bus garage. And at this point in time, it's not to exceed $150,000.
General fund, correct?
Yes, general fund. That's correct.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve an allocation up to $150,000 out of the general fund for the pole barn?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Reed, supported by Mr. Trombley. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 7-0. That closes for action and moves us to for future action. Item A, student handbooks. Who would like to address that? Dr. Allo.
So the policy committee reviewed this. Ms. Reed, actually, do you want to talk about the policy committee? I'm so sorry. I'm doing it for Mr. Scaling. Mr. Scaling has had a family commitment this evening, wasn't able to make it. What I will say is that the policy committee reviewed this. They offered some excellent feedback that Mr. Scaling was able to go back to the principals on, and they were able to make some tweaks to some of the final product here. And that's what's in front of you. So I guess I'm going to open up to any questions or
Well, let
policy.
me add on to what you shared. The student handbooks, every year need to be approved by the board in time for them to be available to parents as they're going through the annual registration process. So this is time sensitive. We do have the wiggle room to have for future action today and for action at our next meeting so that everyone has time to look through the work before they vote on it. But we will really need to have it at that next meeting. Otherwise, we are delaying opening registration for our returning and incoming students. The rewrite looks a little bit heavier than it has probably the last couple of years because the handbook documents needed to align to the new policy book that we've adopted. So since we moved from the Neola policies to the Troon policy book, there are references, terminology changes that needed to be updated. So that's reflected in the changes that you have. And then I think there were probably a handful of other recommendations that were made just based on changes for practices in the building. At the policy committee level, we had a representative from each of the school levels there. Each one of the principal teams sent somebody to explain what they did and why. So we had some good discussion with a wonderful group of principals so that we could understand why these changes were in there. If you have any concerns or questions about it, definitely forward those on to Mr. Scaling so we can get his input and his principals called in if you've got questions or concerns with anything.
I know in the past, it was always the issue of getting the high school printed. Are they all printed? Do the students in all grades, or is it just the high school? I mean, which level is it? The elementary aren't printed, are they?
None of them are going to be printed anymore. They will all be digital.
Okay. So then will that mean that if we need to make changes, it's easier to make changes at that point?
Yeah, if there are significant
If something
issues.
is something,
Yeah.
something arises.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's possible to get anything in now, it would be better for our parents and staff to know before they have to actually agree to them through the registration process.
And if I could just add something, Scranton has quite a few changes, and part of that was to try to align their code of conduct more with the high school, but at an age-appropriate level. So you'll note when you go through, Scranton looks like it has a lot of red lines, and it was so that we have a little more continuum between those two buildings.
Thank you.
All right.
One question.
So which policies do you like better, the Bella or the new ones from Trump?
I like the new ones better.
All right, moves us to item B, the MHSAA resolution. You just want to address that briefly, Dr.
Yeah,
Hall?
briefly, in July, we'll have a resolution that will come forward. It's the annual resolution for the folks that are new. What they do is you have to submit your enrollment for like the high school level, so they can say you're Division I, Division II. And so that resolution will come before you in July. Is there any questions on that?
It's pretty much taken, and the form is like, it's their form.
It's their form. We just put in what our enrollment is and sign it. But we'll be Division I. We're big, so.
All right, that moves us to item C, the FF&E investment for hockey locker room. Mr. Trombley, you want to?
Sure, this was brought to the Finance Committee. This is for part of the renovation of the hockey team locker room. And they're asking for $60,000 for FF&E, which would consist of the varsity lockers and potentially JV lockers, new lockers in there. And the idea of the FF&E of the school is, and this has gone through Troon, it's been vetted through Michael Ingleter as well, and through the bond committee. They will not be permanently attached to the wall, so that's why it can be purchased under FF&E. They'll be sitting on the ground, and they'll be able to be removed if we would ever exit the locker room as our property. So we're asking again for $60,000 for the new lockers for the hockey locker room that hasn't been renovated in 23 years.
Can I ask I have a couple questions, not having been in the meeting. This is at Kensington Valley, right? And those lockers will just be used by the Brighton area school athletes, or the lockers will be available for
That's Brighton
other?
area schools hockey locker room.
Okay, so there's a separate, I don't know anything about hockey, so there's a separate locker room there.
I can assure you of that at this time.
And so what's in there now? Their own facility? They have separate locker rooms for separate schools? Forgive my
South
ignorance
Lyon's
on
in
this,
there,
so,
South Lyon's in there and Brighton's in there.
Okay.
As well as our JV locker room.
okay.
They can-
I didn't realize there was that much space there.
It's under the bleachers.
So this is just for lockers, then for them to store their equipment, their
The
skates?
total project's probably somewhere in the $250,000 range, but the hockey team is out soliciting donations, and the Blue Line Club, which is their, again, I don't know, booster club, if you want to call it that, is working towards raising money as well. But we'd like to try to get it done. And the important thing with this is we have to get the order in order to get them starting to get manufactured in order to get them in for hockey season.
Oh, ahead of the season, right, sure. I have another, this is just a question. I don't know, you may not know the answer, maybe you do. I don't think John Thompson's here. How many athletic teams do we have that have dedicated locker room space for in-season sports, boys and girls? I know some sports do, but a lot of sports do not. So just out of curiosity.
At the varsity level, it's fairly common in Brighton. Brighton is very privileged in this area.
Is that true of girls' sports also?
It is. I know that there was, like with the girls' basketball, I know that there was, believe there was an equity issue that I believe has been addressed, but I believe that it's used by volleyball, it's used by basketball. So there are probably teams that have better facilities than others, and I probably shouldn't speak broadly to every single program, but it's not uncommon for them to have dedicated locker rooms. I went to Brighton High School many years ago, and we had a dedicated baseball locker room back in the olden days. So it's not unheard of.
Yeah, there's a dedicated pom,
Yes.
In this building.
Yeah, well, in high school. Yeah.
And just one thing, if we can get this worked out, because the girls' basketball team and the girls' volleyball team are also in need of lockers, so if we can do this right, we're going to try to combine it for a lot buy to get better prices.
Purchased a larger number of lockers and install some
Yes,
there. and
yep,
some at
yep,
the school.
yep. But again, timing's got to work out, but I think we can get it done for the season, so.
Yeah, so it was brought to the Finance Committee, and Mike Englander was present to review the idea of an expenditure of this type. And he supported that it could be done with certain conditions. So the finance, and I can't speak for Dr. Krebs, but Andy and myself, I'm supportive of the idea. But the hockey team, Andy, you showed support for the lockers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the idea, though, that we have a state championship team on multiple occasions, and in this situation, we supply, let's switch over to football, what we supply for the football team at the school. This situation is we supply virtually nothing for the hockey team comparatively. We don't have a line item budget. We have a 1.6 or $7 million expenditure per year on our athletics and hockey. Again, people aren't here to give these answers. Michael left, but our expenditure on hockey is pretty low when it comes to what we have gained from it. So by the parents that have come for this request to get their students, I toured the facilities, to get their students in a proper environment. They certainly have earned it, the request, by 100%. And they're out doing their fundraising for the other parts of things that we can't take care of, which I take my hat off to them for doing that because they're supporting their kids. But they really have left a very good image on our school. And I think it's a minimal expense for us at this time, and to invest in our students going forward for lots of years. It'd be great to have our own hockey rink, I suppose. No, that could happen, but this time we lease a facility or lease ice space, or the parents actually do. Do you know, Dr. Outlaw, what we spend on a hockey program per year? Do you know what that is?
I don't know, but our allocation would be wrapped around the coaching salaries would be probably our primary investment. And I'm not sure if they have a supply account at all, but you're correct that most of it is going to be funded by parents with the ice time. It is expensive. It is an expensive sport.
It costs each parent $3,000 per player for ice time over and above the equipment that they need to purchase.
I go back to the years, I remember going to their first state championship win. There's a nice picture we used to have. My kids are plastered against the Lexan, and it sure shows the date, time, and how everything's progressed for Brighton. So I think we should do our best and help them and continue.
Have we talked about what protections would be in place to ensure that
Yes.
the equipment that we provide is not rented out for somebody else's use?
Andy Birchfield's father right now is working on a lease agreement.
Okay.
For the school.
All right. That concludes the discussion on item C and concludes our for future action portion of the agenda. Moves us into board reports.
I got one right here.
Mr. Trombley.
I just wanted to compliment Saturday night. I'd never been to an all-night party before, and my son was a senior. I thought he'd go, but he didn't go. And I've never been there, and I wanted to see what it was like. And I'm telling you, the amount of time and effort that the people that planned this thing put in, I couldn't believe the activities, the way it was set up, the food. I mean, everything was, I just thought it was very cool the way it was done. And the amount of timing and the coordination and everything that went along with it, I can only imagine. And it started at 10:30, and I think these people were there until like 5:30 in the morning. And the funny thing is, the next morning I drove through there, everything was picked up, it was clean. I mean, no issues. I just have to compliment, I didn't know, the PTO, the parents. I think Michelle was the one that organized it, or at least she was the one that had her name on stuff. But honest to God, if you guys have never been there, you should try to get a chance to go and check this thing out. Very well worth it. So thanks whoever did everything for that. Thank you.
Yeah, again, I was able to stop by, and it was well done. And I've done 3 of them where I volunteered, spent the night there, got out at 5:30 in the morning, and brought over activities we did over the years. So I would say it's on par with the last several years. I believe they have the book and pass it forward kind of thing. And if I recall, they invest $30,000 plus a year in this party for the seniors. I mean, it's a big deal. and they do fundraising. The students, there's a price for entry cost to get into it, but it's a great place for the kids to all kind of get together for their last program together. And I recall back when I went to Brighton High School, Matt, you guys probably had one. We had a senior all-night party back in the year I graduated. And it was a cafeteria downstairs then. That's where it was, but they had, again, nothing like what these students have. But I think the general, what I saw was there was great attitudes. Same thing at graduation, I guess. Because it was a great evening on the football field, and just the general attitude was really good. It's good to see getting back as close to normal now, these kids, and they did bring it up, as you guys noticed even tonight, they brought it up. You know, the students, so the few years ago during COVID did affect them, but this growth out of that's good to see as somebody that's sitting kind of watching. And so I think that the all-night party was the same, the students were just in good spirits. So thank everybody that did it.
I've got a couple of things. So I'll start with the policy committee. We are continuing with our annual meetings. I think you guys have the minutes, and then obviously our biggest chunk of work this past month was on the student code of conduct. I will say I'm disappointed that the policies on badges and visitors to our buildings and the board code of conduct did not come before us for a vote tonight, as we recommended out of the policy committee meeting, because I didn't get any comments from anyone for changes to either of those documents between the last meeting and now. So I would have hoped that we could actually say out loud that the board is required to follow the same rules as everyone else when it comes to entry to the buildings tonight. So I'm very disappointed that we are not voting on that now, and that for some reason we can't get all 7 of us to agree that the board is not above the rules. So hopefully when we come to our July meeting, that will be on the agenda and we can vote on it. Because I think we are doing a disservice to our students and our parents if we are refusing to hold ourselves accountable for how we behave in our buildings and here at this board table. The other things that I'd like to mention, as always, this time of year is a wonderful reminder of how amazing our community is, how incredibly talented our students are, how much dedication that our students, our faculty, and our administrators put into everything that makes Brighton area schools exactly what it is. Everything from the bridge graduation to the high school graduation to the senior all-night party to all of the parties that I know are happening in every building at every level as you celebrate the end of a successful school year for the students that did amazing things, for the students that struggled and still made it to the end. Thank you so much to everyone that makes Brighton area schools exactly what it is, and such a wonderful place for our kids to grow up and learn how to be amazing adults. So thank you everyone for all of that.
Hear, hear.
Absolutely. I just want to add that the academic curriculum committee meeting will be meeting on Thursday this week.
All right, anything further? Mr. Conley.
Question. I think, Alicia brings up an important part of this regarding where we're going to go with policy and what's allowed or not allowed. I'd sent some information over to Ms. Marks and others, and we sent it around, and I just want to know, do we want to have some discussion on that? What our thinking process is on it? We are not volunteers. We are state officers by statute. So we're not the same. But I don't disagree on some of the things like that you have, but do we have anything we want to talk about, or are we just going to wait until we come back with a policy in writing that we have to dissect it, or how are we going to do that? What's our plan?
Well, the fact of the matter is, unless there's some further consideration to be reviewed by the policy committee, it's probably ready to be brought forward to a vote. We made the decision as the executive committee last Tuesday in setting the agenda because, we've already been here 4 hours. We yet have another closed session. We'll be lucky to be out here by midnight. We figured 6 hours was.
That's fine.
Yeah.
School's out.
So we wanted to, that was a topic, and I appreciate and fully respect your position with regard to that, Alicia. I would like to give it another opportunity for further discussion if there's a way we can tweak it to come to a consensus. That is my hope as well. I'd be happy to have further discussion with you, Mr. Conley, offline and provide further follow-up with the policy committee. But if not, then it will come back for action on July 10th, and we will have a much less robust agenda.
For future action or for action? Your goal is for
Prob-
action?
Probably for action. I
I
mean,
think it should go for action.
ready.
We need to have it in place before the start of the school year, in my opinion. I think so we need to be done.
Recommendation of the policy committee was for action.
okay.
And it's one of those, the badge policy has been in front of this board since February. We should be able to get that done.
Badge policy has been in place for 3 decades. So I mean, the urgency of your.
Okay.
So what we need to
What would
On the agenda.
Yeah.
That's exactly why we didn't want to have it on the agenda. Yeah.
As soon as we get to those items, Roger, I have a few things I'd like to get on the agenda, which I'm sure you're aware of.
All right. That closes the board report section and moves us to the closed session portion of our agenda.
I move that this board go into closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act to review confidential written attorney-client communication.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Marks,
We have
support by Mr. Storm, is that right?
You're going to say any discussion?
Oh, and any discussion?
One question. So when we met with MASB, I forget the gentleman's name, the
Brad
lawyer
Banassi.
that ultimately presented to us. One of the things that was mentioned is the opportunity for discussion in public session as it relates to the board going into closed session. And then coming out of closed session, the opportunity to have discussion. So I was just wondering, what is the mechanism for us to be able to achieve that? I've brought forward a request, my own personal request, no one else's, that the board / Dr. Outlaw grant me approval to engage a third-party legal counsel to essentially explore how we can increase transparency with the public as it relates to stuff we discuss in closed session. And to date, I don't believe I've gotten any clarity from either the board or from Dr. Outlaw as it relates to being able to reach out to an attorney and ask for a second opinion on what we can actually share with the public to increase transparency around what we actually have identified for closed session.
Okay, well, you made the request about a legal opinion.
Yep.
You had raised questions, just kind of general informational, and so.
Oh, it was actually
Hold on,
related
hold
to
on.
me
Let-
being,
let-
me
let
being
let
threatened,
let-
me being threatened to ultimately, I could ultimately, what was the terminology used, Dr. Outlaw? There's a misdemeanor offense, is that what it was?
That was.
It's
that
a
was-
misdemeanor,
that
it is a
was- that was
misdemeanor
something
if you
from
do
the attorney. I
disclose
was not
things,
from me.
right.
Correct.
Right.
Well, in your update that you sent.
Right, it's a
shared
misdemeanor,
MASB
that's why it's
opinion.
sensitive, which is
That's-
why I'm trying to answer your question if you let me finish.
I'm listening.
Okay, so as was discussed by Mr. Banasic, we did that specifically for the purpose of providing professional development for all the board, so it was crystal clear. And to answer your question that you raised when you first made the statement, the ability for, we go in and have a closed session discussion that remains confidential. If we are going to take action as a board based upon the discussion during the closed session, we come out into open session, there's a motion made, there's no debate. It's seconded, there's no debate because it's the topic of closed session, and then we vote on the topic, and we've done that.
So what is the mechanism then that we have as a board to inform the public on matters that are discussed in closed session that don't compromise the confidentiality of the individuals or the particular subject? In other words, I feel I have an obligation to the public to make them aware of things that happen behind the scenes within Brighton area schools that the public should be aware of as it relates to how this administration interacts with teachers, how this administration interacts with students and children in our district. And I personally am an advocate for transparency and want to make sure that the public, we don't use the attorney-client privilege as a means of withholding information that the public has a right to be made aware of. It's easy for us as a board and the administration to say, we're going into closed session, attorney-client privilege, and none of this stuff makes the light of day. No one in the public is even aware of what we're discussing. And to me, it's a disgrace. We can have discussion, we can inform the public without compromising any of the individuals that are involved in these particular matters. And the public needs to know how the administration is ultimately acting. And unless there's a mechanism to inform the public, what do we as a board have available to inform the public and maintain transparency?
We maintain transparency on everything other than what is legally required to be maintained confidential in a properly called closed session. That's always been the case since I've been on the board. That's our intention of continuing to do that. I realize that there's an inherent conflict between unconditional transparency and topics that are to be confidential in a closed session. I mean, there's just an inherent conflict in that. And absolutely, there should be full transparency unless there is something that has to be maintained confidential in a closed session. That's exactly what Mr. Banasek said, that when you have a topic that is in closed session, you have to err on the side of confidentiality. I mean, that's just the way it is. And there are things that it is not proper to engage in public disclosure, which is why it's statutorily recognized as a proper basis to go into a closed session as an exception to the Open Meetings Act. I mean, it's really that simple. If there's going to be action taken based upon discussion during the closed session, as I indicated earlier, we will come out and we will, in open session, make a motion, second it, and take action. If the topic of the discussion is not something that a majority of the board has any desire to take action, then there won't be any further discussion of it because it's not something that is a topic of action to be taken by the board. And that's what Mr. Banasek said. That's what any lawyer will tell you that is familiar with the Open Meetings Act.
And certainly, you always have the option to vote not to go into closed
Yeah.
session. It's a roll call vote. You can express your opinion by voting no. And with the, Dr. Outlaw's probably going to smack me for this, but for attorney-client privilege, we as the board can waive our privilege. We're the client. The client can always waive the privilege. But that would be an action that has to be taken by all 7 of us, so we would have to vote to waive the privilege. And if we vote to waive the privilege, we can waive the privilege. Obviously, that's I don't recall. We should certainly know that before we have such a vote. But I mean, that's a way that we can handle that if you think that's the type of matter that we need to waive privilege on. Obviously, our attorneys are going to tell us not to waive privilege. It's there for a reason so that we can receive more open communication from our attorney than we might have if there wasn't privilege. That's the entire basis for legal privilege anyways. But as an organization, we can choose to waive that if we want to. But it's going to require all 7 of us. So, or an appropriate majority of this board in order to do that, rather than one of us coming to the table and airing everything that was conveyed to us by our attorneys in closed session.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting, and I've never suggested that we air everything that is shared with us, but I do feel very strongly that when we go into closed session, we should be highly motivated to inform the public on portions of that closed session dialogue that helps the public be made aware of matters that they absolutely should be made aware of.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Storm. My concern is that anytime you are sharing only part of the story, you are manipulating the impression that is provided to the public. So
What-
if we choose to, let's say the closed session covers topics A, B, C, D, and E, and the result that you reach in E depends very much on A, B, C, D. If we only talk about E because that's the thing that we've decided isn't covered by the privilege or the public might want to know about, we haven't given them the foundation. So we haven't really given them a full story, and it's not terribly transparent. And it's far too easy for someone to look at a tiny piece of that puzzle and reach the wrong conclusion. So I'm sure I will consider every matter that comes before this board independently and individually based on the facts that are presented at that time. But I will say my starting bias here is that things that we are discussing in closed session for valid reasons probably need to stay there, because what's going to come out here at the table, short of the things that we have to vote on, would leave an incomplete impression for the public, so it wouldn't actually even achieve the transparency that you say you want.
Last question related to this. Who makes the determination that we go into closed session for attorney-client privilege, or maybe said another way, who ultimately is the final arbiter that essentially confirms this is covered by attorney-client privilege?
4 members of the board.
So for what we're going into closed session right now, 4 members of this board have confirmed that this meets the standard of it.
We have to vote.
Okay,
And whether it goes in, whether we go into closed
So
session.
when we vote tonight, this is, our vote is saying
We're going to go into
for
review that.
attorney-client privilege.
The document is already attorney-client privilege. If we want to choose to go into closed session to review that document, we vote on it. Otherwise, we don't get to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, roll call vote. Ms. Ackermite.
Mr. Storm,
I am in favor of going into closed session.
Dr. Krebs,
Yes.
Ms. Reed,
Yes?
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Mrs. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Trombley,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes, that passes 7-0. That is the last item on our agenda for action this evening. When we come out of closed session, we will be concluded. Thank you for coming this evening, and have a good night. Yeah, we're going to go down. I don't even know if she's